Welcome to the Support Raising Solutions podcast, where we help new and current ministry workers grow in being spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded Great Commission workers. Welcome to the SRS podcast. I'm your host today, Callie Davis, and I'm very excited to be joined with Dave Dickens. Hi, Dave.
Hey, hi, everybody. Great to be with you, Callie.
So glad you could join us. Dave joins us from the illustrious organization of Cru. He is their Director of Ministry Partner Development, which I know y'all use the acronym MPD. So It's just referring to your support raising department, right?
Exactly. Ministry Partner Development. Yep.
Okay. And as a director of MPD, you oversee a network of 16 different leaders around support raising and 100 different MPD coaches, which that's a lot that you're managing, as well as just a huge resource of connection. When I wanted to invite you here to hear the stories, your insight, and what I hear is you come with a lot of experience, not just your own, but with this wealth of leaders that you're working with as well.
So, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've been on staff now for 34 years with Cru. It'll be 34 years this summer, and then in the role of Ministry Partner Development, either coaching or leading since 1994. So yeah, even in our own support raising, as well as in coaching and leading others, there's quite a bit of history there for both myself and my wife, who's actually a part of our team. She's one of those 100 MPD coaches. And even related to the end of the year ask, which I know that we'll talk about, that's something that, we started to do pretty much from the beginning. I would say definitely the last 30 years. We've done a end of the year appeal with our ministry partners. So it's something I'm pretty excited about and pretty passionate about for ourselves, as well as for our staff also.
Mm-hmm. Well, so excited. Thank you for being able to take some time out of your schedule to chat with me. And you already mentioned the topic for today is the end of year ask, which, if that's something new for you listeners, that's just talking about a special appeal at the end of the calendar year. So we're talking about November, December. You're sending out a special ask to your partners. And kind of capitalizing on that giving season. Now, this is something as we've talked about before on the podcast. We have several articles about, but I wanted to dive in. Dave, I know you're writing an article for us about the same topic. It's going to be released within, I think, a week or two of this podcast. And I loved your thoughts on what you wanted to really dive into, which wasn't just really the methodology, because I know we've unpacked how do you write a good letter, like do you include a giving envelope, all those like kind of practical things that are really helpful. But I loved your heart of starting first with what you called the spirituality of the end of year fundraising. And I'm curious, why did that resonate with you? Why did you want to start there?
Well, it's probably a lot of people are familiar with the book from Henry Nouwen, The Spirituality of Fundraising, which I find just to be so encouraging and life-giving perspective and biblical about what it means to raise money. And I thought I want to have that same perspective as it relates to end of the year asking and end of the year giving. In fact, Henry Nouwen talks about support raising as a life-giving expression of ministry, which again, wow. I love that. And I always want that to really be my perspective and heart. But I sometimes at the end of the year, in terms of doing our end of the year ask, I can find myself sort of drifting from that perspective, and maybe others can relate to that as well. Where, for a lot of us, it can be such a critical ask in terms of our overall budget. And we can even have a little bit of a sense of competition because at least I know in Cru, a lot of staff are sending out an end of the year appeal. A lot of nonprofit organizations are also taking opportunity in December to make appeals to people. Other churches, other mission organizations have also really focused on this. And so I just want to be careful in my own heart as I approach the end of the year not to think about it in terms of even a strategy or marketing, or definitely, not a competition.
Mhm.
But again, just keeping that right perspective, that this is something I really want to bless our ministry partners with. I want to bless them through the letter and through the opportunity, but also even think about my own heart in December in terms of giving and giving generously. So those are some of the thoughts that got me excited about writing the article, and about even talking about some of those things here today.
Well, can you speak a little more? You talk about wanting to be a blessing, this ask to your ministry partners. How is asking for money a blessing?
Well, you look at Philippians 4:17, where Paul is so grateful for the gifts that the church gave. But if you read that, he's even more excited about the blessing that they're going to receive from the Lord for their generosity, and that their giving is good for them. In the words of Henry Nouwen, their giving is good for their spiritual health.
Mm.
And we see that throughout Scripture, that there is a blessing that comes through generosity. And so, as we are inviting people to partner with us, of course, we're excited about the gift, whether that's joining our team or giving a special gift or giving at the end of the year. But we also can be excited about what the Lord is doing in their heart and in their lives as a result of their generosity. So again, that's what I just want to keep that perspective as I'm inviting people to give at the end of the year. And I would say this, Callie, I think a great way to approach it with the right perspective or right posture
Yeah.
is to spend an hour with the Lord, maybe in October or November, as we're starting to think about our end of the year appeal, and just ask the Lord, what do you want to do through this opportunity, through this appeal?
Mhm.
And then even, Lord, what are the things that you're wanting to do in the lives of my teammates? Lord, would you give my ministry partners many opportunities to give, and to give significantly? Will you give them end of the year bonuses so that they have more resources to give? But I think just asking the Lord, what might this look like? How can I be praying, not just for my own needs and for my own letter, but what are things I want to be praying for relating to my partners, as well as to other missionaries, other organizations, especially, my teammates. But I think it's a great place to start in terms of having my heart be in the right place.
I love I love what you're saying, because it's starting to shift the conversation. I think most people start with, oh my word, I need to talk to God. I need to pray. This is going to be a big deal. But you weren't saying, I need to pray that God will provide the money I need.
Right.
And
Right.
I loved how you were shifting that perspective and asking different questions that really are evoking a different heart posture than I think the unintentional default of having the wrong perspective when it comes to support raising is, I need money. I'm going to trust the Lord to help me for the money I need.
Right. Exactly.
Missed it.
Yes, for sure. And and that's where again, I just want to really reflect on my own heart and have the right posture. And in addition to that, I would even challenge us, and I want to challenge myself with this as well, is that to also be thinking not just in terms of receiving, but in giving. And
Absolutely.
it just makes sense to me that if we are asking others to give, and to give generously and to give significantly at the end of the year, shouldn't we be leading out in our own generosity, so that when I go to the mailbox and see these end of the year appeal letters from my staff friends or from other mission organizations, I just think, what's my response to that? Am I looking at that as an opportunity to give, or do I find those to be a little bit bothersome to me, to read and to reflect and to think about giving or not giving? Does that create tension, or does that actually create more of an excitement and opportunity to give? In fact, one of our staff asked me last year about Giving Tuesday, which is also coming up.
Oh yeah.
And they asked, do you think, how are there, do you think staff should take advantage of Giving Tuesday? And my response to them was absolutely. I think staff should be especially generous
Oh, I love
give,
that. Not the
on
answer they were
giving.
expecting.
Yeah, not at all. But we would be especially generous on Giving Tuesday. And again, just wanting, what's my heart, what's my perspective going into December? Because we know in the scriptures it's better to give and to receive. That's says that that's an Acts. It said that's something that Jesus actually said. So do I really believe that? Is that my heart attitude in December? And this is a fine question to ask. Our staff ask each other this all the time in December. But how is your end of the year ask going? We will ask that from one another. Yeah. And that's okay to ask, and it's exciting. We want to share, what the Lord's doing. But wouldn't it also be fine to say, well, going well, how's your end of the year giving going? Yeah. That might be a little bit too abrupt or challenging to ask in that way. But again, I think we could just have so much of the focus be on receiving, and how is our end of the year ask? Is it producing the results that we want? But let's think about what's my heart perspective and attitude through December? Am I being someone who's really leading out in generosity as I'm asking others to give as well?
Wow, that is beautiful. And now I'm a little curious, do you actually see an impact when you have this kind of much more healthy heart posture? Do you see ripples of how it actually impacts what happens after that, what you do, how people respond? Is there any outward effect from that inward heart posture?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I think for Nancy and me, I just, like I said, we find ourselves, looking forward more to giving opportunities. And we try to have that reflect, in our letter as well, in terms of our posture. And that's where you sort of get into the vision part of the letter, that it's not about our needs primarily, but it's more about the Lord. It's more about the Great Commission. And we have, in terms of results from our letter, we've seen a gradual increase, over the 30 years in terms of people's responsiveness. Is that tailored or associated, with a better perspective that we have, or the different ways, that we're writing our letter to be more visionary and God-focused? I'm not, those things are sort of hard to tell. But I would just say inwardly, I find myself less stressed, about our end of the year ask.
Absolutely, yeah.
I feel like there really is a sense where we're giving this over to the Lord, for the Lord to do what He desires to do in our situation, but definitely more of an excitement for others, that they have the opportunity to see the Lord do a lot through their end of the year appeal. And again, really getting away from this idea that it's a competition. So I think inwardly, those are some of the things that we've experienced over time. And like I said, in terms of people's responsiveness to our end of the year appeal, there has definitely been a marked increase over the years.
Well, and I think I can just echo what you're saying of when I start kind of any support raising, reaching out to my partners, especially in ask, like the year end of ask, any of those efforts. And I take the time to kind of correctly orient myself to God and reset kind of why am I reaching out to people? What is this really about when it's not about me? And you're right, the level of anxiety goes down, the stress level, because suddenly it's not, okay, I have to write this letter that has all the right words, that is going to evoke the right response, and all of that is weighing on me. And instead, I take all that stress and I just leave it up to God, and instead get to be in this place of being excited about what God is doing in my ministry, in the lives of my partners. And I see that change the tone of my writing. I see that change how I'm looking at, I do some follow-up calls. So am I looking forward to picking up the phone or not? And it's a perspective change that does really impact the next couple things I do, because I'm doing them out of a completely different mindset. And it's a lot nicer, a lot more enjoyable.
I know. And then don't you think, Callie, too, it just sort of helps, not to be concerned, with people's how they respond,
Yeah.
whether it's a yes or a no. I just think we have, if we're approaching it from the right heart perspective, we just sort of leave that in God's hands, in terms of people's response. And two, if we don't see as much come in as what we hoped, that's okay. The
Mhm.
Lord, this is in the Lord's hands, and so I'm trusting Him with this. I'm doing my part. I'm inviting people, to give.
Mhm.
But at that point, once the letter's in the mail, and then we do also do some follow up. But and we pray. We love to pray over the letters before they go out, and again, that's just Lord, this is in your hands. You do with this what you will, but don't only bless us, but also others in this month.
Absolutely. Wow. One other thing I kind of wanted to touch on, you've been talking about how your letter ends up being more vision based when you're approaching from this perspective. What happens with your ask? Because often, while we very much encourage people, do not raise your support with a letter ask, this end of year letter campaign usually does have some form of direct ask in it. It is special in that way. So what does that look like in this case?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know for a lot of us, including me, when we do a special appeal, you might want to have something, a ministry event or something that you're asking people to give towards.
Mhm.
Honestly, for us in December, we don't have anything typically, coming up, that we would focus on. And so what we've done, and honestly, our ask hasn't really changed, that much over probably the last 10 years. But we do have we know we cast a vision. We share a changed life story.
Mhm.
And then as we transition to the ask, we'll use that changed life story to say, these are the things that we're so excited about
Mhm.
as we're moving in to the new year. And the Lord is continuing to sort of expand our opportunities and expand our influence. And we are really trusting the Lord for the resources to match that vision.
Mhm.
And so as we come to the end of the year, as you know, end of the year giving is significant to our overall budget, and we would love for you to consider giving a gift. And then there you can get a little bit more specific,
Mhm.
but really just sort of attaching it to the vision that we've already talked about in the letter. But I love that phrase. That we're trusting the Lord for the resources to match the vision that we have for 2023.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by keeping even the ask, keeping it very vision based. We don't talk, if we had some months in deficit, we wouldn't talk about that. We don't really lead out, with our need.
Mhm.
I will mention that this is significant to our overall budget for 2023. But we really try to keep it more vision oriented. And I came across, this is in the article, but someone shared this with me from Pastor Alistair Begg
Mhm.
about how he in his radio program presented an ask. And I love this. And this is what he said: as we come to the end of 2015, so this is a few years ago, with all of our expenses properly cared for, I want to ask you if you'd be prepared to call or go online and make a donation, so that we not only finish 2015 strongly, but enter into 2016 with a great sense of anticipation. Isn't
Yeah.
that awesome? I mean, I love, again, it's not need based. And I love how he talks about that their expenses have been properly, taken care of, for the previous year. But we're really wanting to start strong into this new year. To
Mhm.
me, as a giver, that feels very compelling. I can
Right.
really be excited, to give to that opportunity. And so that's what I would encourage us to think about as well, not making our ask need based, but really making it vision based.
Yeah. And I think I also want to reiterate for those of you listeners who might be in a place that this end of year giving time is really how you end your year solvent. It is you are not going to be okay until these gifts come in. And I would say I know many people that do wisely plan their budget over consistent giving that happens at the end of the year. So that is perfectly fine. And you might internally feel that there is a very desperate need, but there is so much more power. I love, Dave, you said the word compelling, to have a compelling ask. So even though you might feel that very kind of, this needs to happen or else, we always want to cast the vision bigger, because God is doing so much more. And we want people to be excited about that, not our bottom line.
Callie, that's really well said, because that is true, that for some of us, it's pretty important, to have a solid end of the year in terms of giving. And that's totally fine. There's, for some, that's the place that we're at. And as Callie, you were saying, I still think we can really capitalize, even still on the vision, on the new year, in terms of people giving, to meet that need, for sure.
Wow. Well, I want to ask Dave, is there anything else you want to leave with our listeners? One kind of final core thought?
Again, I think the most important things, that we've talked about is, and please take that hour, with the Lord.
Yes.
I just think that can really set people on a really true, healthy, trajectory, with their end of the year, appeal. And, again, to quote Alan, or Henry Nouwen, is for us to see this as a really great opportunity to be blessed, but also to be a blessing to others. On the practical side, just real quick, a couple of things that Nancy and I do that we find helpful. Although it's not a competition, we do want our letter to stand out, and we'll do hard copy letters to everyone. And so we want it to stand out from our regular prayer letters, not necessarily trying to get it to stand out from everyone else's appeal. But I do want people to see that it is a little bit different. So we use a different color envelope. And then we also use typically a holiday or Christmas return label. So it's a little bit different. It helps people know that this letter is special, that there's, and they know now that this is our end of the year ask. And something else too that Nancy and I have done is that all our other letters we outsource to our prayer letter service, but not our end of the year ask. So we'll sit at the dining room table, and it takes hours
I believe it.
To fold and to stamp and to stuff and all that. But it is such, as we walk through each of those names of our partners, it's just such a great reminder of the Lord's generosity, the Lord's faithfulness, of our friendship, with these ministry partners. It's just, we usually do it in the beginning of November, and it's just a great reminder of how grateful we are for our partners, and grateful to the Lord as we look at each of those names as we put the label onto the envelope. But just something for Nancy and I that's been meaningful for us to do. And like I said, then and when the kids were younger, they would help us, and then we would pray over the letters before we take them to the post office. So that helps also, I think, in terms of our attitude and perspective as well. So I would encourage us to consider that also.
Wow. I love that. I love that little picture I'm getting in my head of that. Looks really special. Yeah.
And it's fun, for those of us who have kids at home, getting them involved, and then let them see what the Lord does. And as the checks come in the mail, or they get posted, to our ministry account, let the kids see, what the Lord is doing. And I just think it's a great way for them to see the faithfulness of the Lord, and a little bit of preparation, for maybe their first mission trip, when they need to raise support. They've seen how the Lord's provided to mom and dad, over the years. So get the kids involved if you can.
As someone that was one of those kids when my parents were with crew staff, I mean, it's one of the big reasons I said yes to ministry. Awesome. It was having seen God provide. So I am the testimony to that story.
That's awesome. That's great, Callie.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you. And for those of you that have not ever seen the SRS blog, we release an article every other week. So please do check out supportraisingsolutions.org/blog. And you can see Dave's article coming out there to help you as your end of year ask is approaching. Maybe it's something new that you've never done before. Maybe it's something that you have some renewed encouragement and vision. Either way, thank you so much for joining us, listeners. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us today, and please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode as we work to give more insight into building and maintaining your ministry partnership team.